Good morning, everyone. Hello, hope you are well. I am Brian Hills, Deputy CEO of the Data Lab, and welcome to this Data Lab community session on using data to change lives. Absolutely looking forward to discussing with our expert panel on what they're doing in this space and some inspiring stories as well. And before we kick off with that, just a couple of things to give you some updates on. On today's session, we have members from our community and also members out with the community, and a very warm welcome to you. If you are interested in joining, Paul, our community manager, will post the sign up during the session and you can have a look. In terms of where we are with that just now, just a brief update. Since we went live about a month ago, we've now got 550 members from across 25 countries in the world, which is amazing. And we have lots of different conversations and themes that we are scheduling for the community to enable people to connect with each other and to learn and move forward with their own data journeys. So as well as the usual kind of groups and forums and events like this that we're doing, there's some new things that we're going to release in the next quarter, such as a mentoring application, the ability to connect to mentors or mentor if you like, some collaboration functionality, and also a version on mobile phones as well. So lots of stuff coming up, and as I said, Paul will post the link to join if you're interested. In terms of this session, very important to us, as we say in community, that we are respectful and support each other in what we're doing. It's strongly linked to our values and the Data Lab of support, respect, innovate and grow. So we want to conduct these sessions, respecting each other, also learning from each other as well. So we'd ask you to be respectful of each other and our speakers, who I think are probably mostly all working at home. So again, random cats, dogs, children flying around to be expected and welcomed, as we say in the Data Lab. When we get the session going, very much, I've got some questions to kind of anchor the discussion. Really welcome your questions from the audience on what you'd like to learn from our panelists on their experience or opportunities. So please, if you could post your questions in the Q&A box on Zoom, we can pick those up and I'll pass them on to the panelists. Paul will also be posting links that the panelists have shared with us to resources and case studies and various other ways that you can connect to them as we go through. And we're also recording this session to share within the community at a later date. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started. Really looking forward to the discussion, and a warm welcome to Irina, Alex and Daria. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Rather than me introduce you, I think it'd be great if you could introduce yourselves. And let's start off, let's go round and let's start with Irina. Good morning, Irina.
Morning. Thanks for inviting me, Brian.
So Irina, if you want to kick off, just say just briefly what your role is, who you work for, maybe why you got into this space, what inspired you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Irena Preda. I'm a data scientist by trade. So my background is that I've been doing data science for over 6 years. Before that, I was a software engineer. While I really loved being a freelance data scientist, I also felt that I wanted to do more for social causes. So I was really excited to hear about DataKind and the work that they do, and I felt that finally I could combine what I was doing in my volunteering time with my working time. And so to tell you a little bit about what I do at DataKind, I'm the data science lead at DataKind UK, which is a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits to improve their data and tech capabilities. And our mission is to increase their responsible, sustainable, and impactful use of data in the UK social sector. So I gave you a little bit of information about that. Sorry, was there another question?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, lots of questions coming up. That's a great introduction. Thank you, Irina. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And next we have Alex. Good morning, Alex.
Morning, nice to meet you all and nice to see everyone. I'm Alex Fassio and I am the Advocacy and Relations Manager at the Data for Children Collaborative with UNICEF, which is a mouthful to say the least. So we are a jointly funded collaboration by the Scottish Government and the University of Edinburgh's Data-Driven Innovation Programme, with UNICEF as our third partner. And we kind of work to use data to help improve outcomes for children across the globe. So my background is not data science at all. I come from a philosophy background with a real interest in kind of the ethics of AI, technology, and that kind of thing. So I came to the collaborative with that mindset and was really looking forward to being able to put philosophy into practice in everything that we do. So it's a great job for me to learn more about data as well in the data space as I'm going, but also be able to use those philosophy skills too. Amazing. Thanks, Alex. And you might not plug yourself and the team, but you guys won an award last week, which was amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please? Yeah, so we were shortlisted at the Data IQ Awards in 2 categories, so Data for Society, and our director, Alex Hutchison, was shortlisted for Data for Good Champion, which she won. So we were all really proud of that. We're a small organisation, haven't been going for very long, so it was really nice to kind of be recognised and awarded for that as well. And we got to go on a night out in London, so that was a win as well. Amazing, amazing. Congratulations. Thank you, Alex. And we have Daria. Hello.
Hello, very happy to join here today. So I'm Daria. I'm working in Doctors Without Borders Spain section as a supply chain advisor and data scientist. So like in our organization, our main role is to provide healthcare to the people in conflicts. And my role is actually to support the teams in the field in supply chain, especially in supply chain processes. And as a need, actually, with my team, we also took the initiative to work on data and then data science in supply chain. Actually, this is a very new, beginning topic in our also organization. It's just getting bigger and bigger. So we took the step to get this, to achieve this in supply chain, especially focusing on supply chain. And in my career, actually, I am also not a software engineer or a data scientist. In the background, I'm an industrial engineer, so I am a researcher actually. And then I decided to go into the humanitarian aid, and then I just started with Doctors Without Borders. So just looking forward to our conversation today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daria. And yeah, it's really interesting when you guys introduce yourself in terms of the different types of backgrounds that you come from. I've really been noticing that people who join the community tend to post in the live feed just some of their background, why they've joined. And it's amazing reading all the stories, actually, because I think sometimes in our heads we imagine that people who get in data space maybe have done computing, then a master's or something or whatever, and then go into the space. But there's so many people coming from so many different backgrounds that I think that's great, actually. You get great potential for collaboration and diversity in what we do. So thank you for intros. Let's get going. I wanted to maybe start maybe in the same order as we covered the introductions. So maybe start with yourself, Irina. Give us a flavor of one or two of the kind of key projects that you've been working on or your organization works on to share with the audience, to give a feel for the impact and the work that you're doing.
Sure. So just to provide a bit more background, DataKind UK is a small team of staff, but we run with the power of amazing volunteers. So that's data scientists from industry that want to provide support to the voluntary sector. And one project that we're really proud of, we conducted last November, and it was a kind of data dive event. So just to give you a bit of background, it's a weekend event where we bring lots of volunteers together with data science skills to solve the questions that the charities looking to answer. And we work with the charity really closely before the event to really refine everything from the questions, the data, and then on the day, people can just focus on fun data science stuff. And we're really happy with how things turned out. The partner was incredibly engaged and felt that it massively improved their confidence in what data can do for them. But just to give you a bit of background on Christians Against Poverty, they help people who have unmanageable debt and kind of help to give them the support that to manage that situation in their life. And one of the questions that they had was, they wanted to understand the factors that predict someone being able to be supported successfully by them. And they were really grateful to understand that certain aspects, like the region where they're from, is really impactful. So it meant that they then had a different approach to view it on more region-based system. Although some were not as surprising, that is really hard to manage if you just have a really large amount to repay. So unsurprisingly, that's a predictor. But the more demographic and local characteristics and factors, those were really interesting for them to understand their clients better. And not only that, we were also able to apply linear regression models and decision trees to understand what are the factors that determine the journey of a client of theirs and the success that they have in terms of the support that they get. And it was able to predict to a really high amount of accuracy, 90%, whether someone was going to be successful in terms of their metrics for getting the client to where they need to be. So that meant that they can then use that model to better understand whether it's likely that this person is going to be successful and whether they need to try something different. Another interesting thing that I always like is when people's intuitions are kind of thwarted, I guess you could say, because we always ask charities, what do you expect to come out in terms of the patterns? And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and that's okay. And we found that about half of their intuitions were correct. But for example, they were wrong in thinking that in terms of taking insolvency, pensioners were actually not more likely. It was just an assumption, basically. So it really goes to show that data can really correct certain human foibles, I guess, and make us understand things from a different perspective. And so we were really happy that Christian Against Poverty really saw the benefits of what you can do if you're data driven, and see a path forward for them to kind of integrate it more into their processes. So we're really happy with how that project turned out.
Amazing. Thanks, Irina. I think I'll ask each of you as we go through as well, but in doing all of that work and catalyzing people to collaborate, I mean, how do you feel as lead data scientist and data kind doing this? When you get these results out, you're working with a client.
Yeah, it feels pretty amazing, but also quite humbling because, I'm just one small cog in this whole system. And the thing that kind of drives it forward is the energy and enthusiasm of the bright minds, the volunteers, and also, the kind of humility and curiosity of the charity partners, right? So I feel really, really grateful to be part of that, because it's a coming together and bringing together the tools needed to advance the goals of the voluntary sector.
Amazing. Thank you, Irina. Let's move to Alex. Alex, so an example of one or two projects you guys have been working on. I know you've got a lot going on at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say it's quite hard to pick. We're doing so much. I'd say probably one of the moments this year that we all kind of took a step back and really were reflecting on, how data can be used to have an impact. We launched our climate change project with UNICEF, and this is looking at creating a child-specific climate risk index. So quite often children are missed in these climate projections, and there's actually evidence that they experience climate risk in a little bit of a different way to adults, and that's getting missed in policy. And it's really important for UNICEF, and I think for lots of other charities as well, to start thinking about how we can help children, how we can build resilience. So we brought together a really great collaborative team, like you were saying, Brian, from a various backgrounds. We've got geoscientists, we've got social scientists coming in, working together to pull together this atlas and this index and show those projections of climate change. And I think it was a really nice moment. We had a big media launch. It had quite a high profile release across the UK media and globally. We had youth activists like Greta kind of supporting us and providing feedback on that. And I think it was a real win moment for us to look at how not only data scientists can be using data and their skills to push forward UNICEF's agenda and help children, but also that collaborative team. And I think one couldn't work without the other. So we could have the geoscience, we could have the data science there, but it was that social sciences aspect pulling in and helping us kind of have the context and set the scene that really made this the success that it was. So I think for our team, that was a real moment of success and a real achievement for us. And we're now working with them, thinking about COP and thinking about future planning as well, how we can continue to keep this team together and provide some real interesting insights for UNICEF.
Amazing. Yeah. And as I asked Irina, Alex, and coming in from a philosophy background as well, and into the team, how do you feel when you see the results of the projects that you're working on?
I think for me, not being a data scientist, I think seeing that kind of end result and how that's going to inform policy or how that's going to have an impact on people is really refreshing and rewarding. I think the media is so often kind of painting data in a bad light, and you only see the bad things in the press. Facebook this week is a prime example. But actually looking at the community of people who are willing to give their time and their skills and their expertise to help these projects that are going to make a real difference, I think it makes me really proud to be part of it. And I think, for me, it's a learning experience as well. I had very little data science specific knowledge before coming into this, and actually watching how the collaborations work and watching how the teams work together is really rewarding.
Amazing. Thank you, Alex. And Derya, an example of a project or projects that you've been working on, Medicine Sans Frontier?
Yes, so maybe I can, before just explaining the projects, I can share the context. Actually, like in humanitarian aid also, like everything is like, we don't have advanced technology. Mm-hmm. So all our like data systems are manual and offline. So when I first started, we have everything in Excel, and we had 90 backups, offline backups, and we were just getting reports manually, everything. So before doing an analysis, because I love analytics, I love doing data science, but then there is no data consolidated, there is no data. So the first project was to do the data engineering, collect the data, combine this data into one place, and then to make it also in a standard format. So that was one of the biggest starting projects that I worked on. So we had different systems, and then we try to understand the data, how it works, and we try to understand also it's too much manual, because in the field, also because of the nature of the the system, everyone can change everything, so you cannot really rely. So we made masters, everything. So we combined all this supply chain data into one, and then with the help of Python and everything, now we can get all the reportings and all the data that we need to analyze. So that was one huge project that I joined, and now also it is getting bigger, because now we are just also combining it into combining finance, HR, and also medical. The medical operations data into one place. So it is getting even more exciting. So that is one big chunk, the start. And then actually the next project that currently I'm working on is actually predicting the needs, medical needs. So this is now what we are doing is really basic, getting the averages, even not the variability. So using machine learning models is one of the idea. Now, I am working on time series analysis on the medical data to understand, okay, what we should expect in the coming months. But there are a lot of complexities in this, because we cannot trust first purely on data. We need decision makers. We need the medical staff. Because they know what will happen. So there should be a system that combines both. So this is the second really exciting project that I'm currently working on. But as I said, we need both capacity for data science in the field, and also we need more technology to implement to get the data and just to analyze it. So it is just getting in the beginning phase, but really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, Great. I was going to come on to data collection shortly as well, so that's a good jump off point there. Is there any, and feel free, the answer might be no, Daria, but is there any specific humanitarian, crisis areas that you're working on in those projects just now that you could share? Are they specific to a country and things that are being experienced at the moment?
Yeah, actually, like maybe one of the things that I can tell is like, because now we are working on like the 25 countries, and in every country there is like a crisis. It is like either long-term, like conflicts, or short-term. For example, I'm like everyday job, I'm supporting Yemen, and Yemen is always like in a conflict. Yep. But there are also because like for our case, for our operations, we have hospitals, and it is like a long-term support, long-term healthcare support to the communities. So we always have there is a need, there's a constant need. But the thing is that what makes it actually humanitarian is that because when, for example, in Yemen, there are like, for example, in the just east region, when there is a conflict and people start moving, and then like people migrate, and then there are refugees. So the people who need just healthcare is getting more. So we need to catch this in our analysis, in our prediction models. And this is missing because like now what we do is that also the medical team is just making a prediction. Okay, next month, okay, we will increase our capacity this percentage, and then we make the analysis like that. It's very like high level. But also there are cases, for example, in Yemen, last year there was COVID, of course, and there are like cholera outbreaks. Actually, every year there are there's cholera, but the outbreak is also has some like seasonalities. So when there are like specific cases like this, like the outbreaks, then we need more like efficient and very fast systems. So there are actually two different kinds of operations. One is long term, like more steady, and one is the like more emergency type. And emergency type is like very there's less data, and it is also harder to make get the data, and also to react. But also this is like a very open case, I think, for data science, because it's very exciting to understand at a very short time to predict what will happen.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. And as I've asked Irina and Alex, Daria, how do you feel doing the work that you're doing and seeing the outputs and how people are making decisions from the work? How does it make you feel working in this space?
Actually, for me, it's like very like self like I really like it, because like when we do something, there is always an improvement, and to see that it works and it helps. It is very like just like it makes you happy, and also like it is like it gives you like more confidence, and also enthusiasm to continue. But everything I think we do in humanitarian aid, like it makes an impact, because it is really like a potential, and we really see the difference.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. So I'll come on to data collection shortly. Just to remind people, if you want to post a question, I'm happy to pick it up on the Q&A. Please post questions there. Maybe go in actually to ethical aspects of data. And I know, Alex, this is an area you're particularly interested in, and especially when we're looking to help the world's children, thinking about how we collect and use and take actions from that data is really important. I know you guys have been working in this space, and I certainly feel from an industry point of view, it's not really prevalent. There's not a lot of focus on this still, which is frustrating. I wonder if you want to describe some of the work that you guys have been looking at in the Data Collaborative for Children.
Yeah, sure. I think ethics is definitely gaining some traction, but it still has a long way to go in the data space. I think there's been real pushback as ethics as being like a blocker to innovation or just another tick box. And I think from coming into the collaborative, what we really tried to do was make it a value add to our project. So try and change that narrative and think about, well, how can asking these questions of ourselves and of the project and of the project team actually improve the design in the long term? So, you know, we're addressing the difficult questions at the beginning. We're not going back and fixing things retrospectively, you know, after the problem has happened. So we've done a lot of work on building kind of a toolkit. We call it our responsible innovation framework. And this is kind of a set of steps that we take at the collaborative for every project to make sure, you know, we're doing it in the right way in terms of legislation, but we're also doing it for the right reasons. I think because we work for a vulnerable group, it's really important that we take that responsibility and accountability and make sure we take the time to make sure that projects are getting it right. So we have quite an extensive ethical assessment that follows the life cycle of a project. And what we aim to do with that is work with the project team collaboratively and work through the steps, asking questions about project design, who's it going to impact, how are you going to communicate your findings, what data are you using and why. And I think it's about empowering those teams to feel comfortable asking those questions and answering those questions as well. You know, we don't want it to be another piece of paperwork or another difficult, you know, checkpoint to get through before a project can start. And we've had some really great feedback from teams as well, that this was a really useful exercise for them to stop and think, because not all of them will have worked on projects for children before. You know, it's a new space for a lot of the people that we work with. And so actually having someone say, well, how is that going to impact children? Or have you thought about, you know, how you're communicating your findings might paint certain groups of children in a negative light? And it's having that moment to reflect on what you're doing in a safe environment and in quite a structured way is a really important thing. So I think we're very lucky that we've got great buy-in from our senior leadership about our kind of stance on ethics, and we've had great input from experts as well along the way to help us refine the tools that we have. But yeah, still a long way to go, I think, across the data sector as a whole, but it's nice to see that we're starting to go in the right direction.
Amazing. And did you feel personally, I guess you came from the philosophy background, did you feel that you could bring some of the reading and expertise and research that you've done in that space to bear on the outputs and the thinking of what you're doing in the collaborative?
Yeah, definitely. I think my kind of personal agenda was always to take it away from that philosophy ivory tower. I think, you know, philosophers get a bad rep sometimes for just sitting away in an armchair with a book, and it's not very practical. So for me, it was thinking about how we transfer that learning into something practical and accessible for people to use and engage with. I mean, there's no point doing all this research if it's going to be stashed away on a bookshelf and no one can engage with it. So for me coming in, it was thinking about, yeah, how to transfer that kind of theory, if you like, into a practical set of steps that people find useful. So it was a bit of a challenge, but I think we're definitely getting there, and it's nice to see now people engaging with that in a positive way. Amazing.
Irina, I know you DataKind, you guys have been doing some work in this space as well. I guess from a number of different angles, you're working with vulnerable groups and charities and the data dives you're doing. You're also, I think, have book clubs and other things. You want to give us kind of an intro to what you're doing in the ethical area?
Yeah, it's quite a lot actually, and I think it's because from the beginning when DataKind was formed, ethics was really held in mind, I think, and is really an essential part of the foundation. So our mission very much is about sustainable and ethical innovation, and I think, as Alessandra said, it's about integrating ethics in the continuously in the journey that we have with our charity partners. So that means continuous ethical assessments. You know, should we be doing what we're doing? What exactly are we doing? Could it have unintended consequences? Could the intended consequences not be great either? You know, so you're asking these questions all throughout. And we've been able to establish this continuous process through our excellent ethics committee. So this is a group of people these includes researchers in AI ethics that then can bring their expertise to inform how best we should have these practices, right, to ensure that whatever we create, it's ethical, basically, and it's not something that charities would run away screaming from. And the committee has been so incredible because not only have they informed our practices in terms of our programs, but they've gone out of their way and created, as you said, kind of book clubs and discussion groups, as well as a really excellent ethics checklist. So that is a kind of toolkit that examines other checklists in the world of fairness and kind of model transparency, etc., and gives recommendations for data scientists on how to embed ethics into their work. So I really recommend checking out the toolkit. I think they're sharing the link. So it's been really useful to have people that are so dedicated and understand the importance of integrating ethics in data and AI work.
Amazing, thanks. Yes, and Paul's just posted the link for anybody who's interested in picking all that great stuff up as well. Chucks has asked a question. I'll come back to that shortly. I just wanted to go to Daria. I know we've chatted beforehand, and for your specific focus, you're not too much into the ethical side. Is there anything that you're aware of in Medicine Sans Frontières that looks at that space? If not, it might be worth connecting with other two ladies afterwards to exchange some knowledge.
Yeah, I think that will be great. As I said, like in terms of supply chain data, we are still in the beginning of the process, and we don't have direct like patients data. But it will come eventually, because we will predict and we will make decisions, and we will also have direct patients data. So the ethical side should come. So I think the earlier we include it, the better. So I think it's a nice gain from also our discussion today. But in terms of like whole Medicine Sans Frontières, like in terms of epidemics data, actually maybe we can connect in UK, like we have epidemics centers, and we have lots of data. And it is now open source data. So we have data regarding all the just disease and the usage and the patients. But what we have is that we have a protocol, and then it's like ethical protocol to decide on, okay, this data is creating a conflict, is this creating a risk for the patient, because we are having data from places, maybe the specific data will create a danger for the specific community, because there are arms, there are different types of conflicts. So all these different decisions are being considered, and before sharing with the research institutes or with other partners, there is a committee to decide, okay, how to proceed and which data we can share and which data we cannot. So there is an ethical data sharing protocol in that case, but it's only for the more DZ modeling cases.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. So let's dive into data collection a little bit. Chucks, you posed the question. I'm going to come back to that after this one, because I think the impact piece is a really interesting question that, to be honest, Data Lab struggles with as well at times. So we'll get into that shortly. So yesterday, some of you may have been on our Planet session at Data Talks, where we had Anne Daniels, the Polar Explorer, and she was talking about her journey to the poles and working with scientists and collecting data. And there's this amazing photo of her and her team who'd crossed the ice, but it then broke into water, so they had to get into their sledges and paddle across the Arctic Ocean to get to the next bit and put probes in to collect data, etc., which just kind of highlighted, the craziness of collecting some of the climate data that scientists want to use. So I kind of wanted to delve into a little bit about, and Daria, you've touched on this from your side, I think, but we can go back into it, on maybe the types of data you're collecting, where they're coming from, some challenges around that, and the sources themselves, do you use open data? Do you have to pay for data? Because I know some charities have to pay for data from telcos, etc., to use it to get insights, etc. So a wee bit more insight on the data that you use. Irina, do you want to kick off with that one?
Sure. So just to rephrase the question or say it back to you.
Yep.
So the question is about how is data collection done and what are the challenges?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I think one of the first things to say is that, you need to also fight a kind of lack of awareness of the importance of data collection in general. So it's about, even in our relationships with our charity partners, getting them to understand the benefits of collecting data, and also to then pass on the information so that the whole organization has that kind of buy-in, because oftentimes, it's volunteers, it's staff that need to understand why they're collecting data, how they should collect it, etc. So you need a kind of holistic approach to data. So that's something that we often work very closely with. And in terms of what data they use, sometimes it's internal data that they collect. As you said, sometimes it's purchasing the data. Oftentimes they also use government data or research data, open data. And one of the challenges there, I think, is again just a kind of lack of awareness of the challenges of working with some of this data, and unhelpful assumptions around the compatibility between what the data offers and what the charity is looking to do with it. So that's where it's valuable to have organizations that are able to advise on the best approach forward, because there can be a lot of data out there, but you need to understand how to combine it together with your needs. So I would say, it's lack of awareness that there is data out there, that it's very powerful, and it's worth the time to find it integrated. Secondly, it's about the lack of, oftentimes charities might not have that kind of funding to invest in having a data scientist. So it's about getting that advice. I think those are the two main challenges. And another thing is just that's kind of related to the fact that once you do have the data, you don't actually have to invest in very fancy tools or very, over the top models. Something very simple can be incredibly effective. So that can also affect charities' interest in collecting the data, is if they understand that actually it's not as scary as they might think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Irina. And for you, Alex, the types of data sources you're collecting and going about that?
So I think at the collaborative, we steer away from data collection and we try and rely as much as possible on existing data sets, whether they are open source, things like humanitarian OpenStreetMap and things like that, or whether we're relying on kind of UNICEF surveys or government data as well. So we haven't really engaged in any data collection exercises ourselves. It's just not something we've looked to do just yet. But I think in terms of the challenges, one of the biggest things for us can be that sustainability piece. So like you were saying, some data sets can be very expensive, things like satellite imagery, for example. And if we want to create project outputs that can be sustainable and used for a long time, how do we set up those pipelines to make sure that it's not just a one-off project and then it sits on the shelf? There needs to be kind of relationship building. And other would be access to data, just more generally, some data sets can take a long time to get access to, even with the right links and the right relationships and things like that, so that it's timely as well. It's up to date and it's relevant. We're not using backdated data all the time. But yeah, and also making a sustainable pathway to make sure that our outputs are usable for a longer period of time.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And Daria, we touched beforehand and you gave the example of Yemen. I mean, I just can't start to understand how you collect reliable data from such a really challenging situation. Do you have people on the ground that are literally collecting some data that you can use? How does that kind of work?
Yes, actually, like that's one of the challenges, like the quality of data. So we like all our data is like internal, so it's all our own like data coming from our own operations. So in the field, actually we have our own like warehouses and our own like hospitals, or like we are supporting the like ministry hospitals. But there we have our own teams who use like very simple like stock management tools, or very simple like health management tools, so that they enter like what we take out from the stock and what we give to the hospital, like manually into the system. So we have our own capacity who deals with the like the data. That's like because there are like stock management tools, like very basic ERP systems, but very basic and very prone to manual errors. Actually, like it's a very like there are a lot of, it's very hard to standardize the data actually. But people really like, for example, one of the things that is we find most challenging is that before making, for example, any like in orders, we count all our stocks, like what is inside my pharmacy, and there are like thousands, maybe millions of like just like lines to count, and then people really go like manually count like hands in hand, and then they write in a paper, and then by then they just transfer this into the ERP system, and you can think that this is very prone to like manual errors, but it's also very like time consuming for the teams. But another like I think interesting topic is the like the patient's data, because we have another part is that like, okay, from the hospital, when the doctors give or the nurses give medicine to the patient, which is actually the actual data that we can predict the consumption, we can predict the needs, and that data is actually also manual. Because now, like the doctors, like the nurses, write them on papers, and then someone takes them and then puts them into the system. So that data is also very like, it's the most important data. I think like it's like I think better like has highest impact than all the supply chain data, but it's also very manual. And now there are a lot of cases, as like Irina, you said, like there are simple technologies that we can automate this, like from the mobile phones, from like just like with very simple technology, like we can automate this. But now it is very manual, so it is very hard to get this data and then to say that, okay, can I rely on this? So yeah, definitely, we need like a system to clean, to assess, and also like people to assess this decisions.
Thanks, Daria. Yeah, it's an amazing story of what you have to do to get the data to analyze, isn't it? Then make the decisions. Let's move on to impact and measuring impact. So, I guess the title of this, using data to change lives, can absolutely see, everyone's passion in doing it, and some great stories as well. I guess at the end of the day, we need to measure our own impact to make the case for success or challenges, future funding, all that kind of stuff, and really understand the effects that we're having and the impacts and positivity that we're having in what we're doing. So I wondered if you have any specific approach to measuring the work that you and your organization does, and how you demonstrate that impact. Picking up on Chuck's question in the chat there, I think was specific to the UNICEF piece, Alex, but we'll widen that out. So I guess maybe start from you, Alex. Are you guys at the point, I know you're relatively new in the scheme of measuring impact from the outputs of your project, but how are you looking to measure that impact to say children in Scotland?
Yes, I think it's a difficult question, one we've kind of been tackling a lot internally, is what does impact mean to us? I think a question we get a lot of time as well. That's all well and good, but how many children have you saved? And it's like, well, how can we possibly measure that. I think we act as the conduit for UNICEF and our other kind of partners to go out and use the tools that we create to help them, make their jobs easier, deliver vaccines, whatever it may be. So we've looked at kind of measuring impact in a slightly different way, and we've kind of got impact dashboards now on our website that show that. So thinking about, our community, how we're engaging with them, what valuable interactions are like within the community, who we're engaging with and why, and what that leads to, whether that means they come into our projects, whether they're a data partner. So really starting to look at what the collaborative is doing in the wider community. We've also created a knowledge zone, which kind of shares all the outputs of our projects so far. So that's a really nice way of us to track, what tangible outputs we've got from our projects, whether that be, maps, whether it's the atlas, whether it's a report, and how they can be used. We make sure that everything we do is open for everyone to share as well. So I think, we wouldn't look to say, oh, we've saved this many children in this country. It's just not kind of within our remit, and it's not something that is easy to measure either. But I think for us, it's about making sure that we've got a method of saying, well, the tools that we've built and the community we've built are helping others to fulfill that need. So a challenging question, as you can imagine. Impact is so difficult, but that's kind of the slant we've taken on it.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And you mentioned you've got dashboards on your website, so that's open and free for anybody to view. I guess, Chucks, if you want to go check that out, I think Paul will probably post up the website. If you could, Paul, that would be great for the Data Collaborative for Children. Irena, from your side, measuring the impact of all the great work that you do, how do you go about quantifying that and communicating it?
Yeah, so our role is for charities to kind of level up their data capabilities. And so the way that we've approached analyzing our impact is that we have a data maturity framework. So the idea would be that organizations become more data mature as we work with them. And we work very closely with them over, many years. It is not a kind of short-term project that we just run away and leave you alone, right? We're continuously working on improving the maturity of each organization. And we also kind of go back. Basically, we have a regular intervals where we basically check in on what needs to be done. We do the work, and then 3 or 4 months later, we check in on the impact. And we've recently done an analysis, a kind of meta-analysis of the data maturity journeys, and we found really interesting insights. One insight was that each data maturity journey is quite unique to the organization, depending on the size, the funding, which direction they wanted to head in terms of data analysis. So that's something that's really valuable for us to know. And also that it's very long term, the impact that we have, so immediately they might make some changes to do with data use, so using a new tool or data source that they weren't aware of before, but it can also be investing more in terms of upskilling internally or even hiring analysts with particular skills. So these are the kind of changes that you might see a year after the work with them. So we actually had to make sure to register these kind of changes and look very long term at our involvement and the impact that we have. Yeah, hopefully you can share the link of the data maturity framework. It has a lot of detail as to how we examine our organization and understand its relationship to data and data science very deeply.
Great, thank you, Irena. I think Paul will find that and post it, the link. And for yourself, Daria, the approach to, do you have an approach in the team to measuring the impact of the work that you're doing as an organization?
Yes, actually, we have our own annual reports of whole MSF, because we have a lot of structures. We have 5 sections. Each section is working in at least 25 countries, so we are huge. But then every year we have annual reports, and then in the annual reports, what we measure is that how many people we treated with specific disease and how many, for example, vaccinations we did. And in each country, like what are the changes of patients like in bed, like hospitalized, and like who were treated without going to the hospital. So there are different measures that we show and share publicly every year. That's like one like very holistic like view. But in terms of like when we go into more like micro level, for example, when I was in Yemen, like I was actually fascinated because like in our hospitals, we have like the medical teams, and they were really like every week they were starting the week by telling, okay, the last week we had like for example like 90 births, and we saved this much like people, and also the death rate was this much. So it's really like in micro level, it's like a measure. So like if these like every week or every month, if things are increasing, then it means that, okay, we need to do something. There's something going wrong, there's something going right. But with this data, for example, it doesn't, okay, in high level, it comes to these reports, but like to my, like our projects, we don't have that. So also it's very valuable to get this like weekly, like field data. But of course, these are all discussed in the medical team. But yeah, we need more holistic approach, of course. And in terms of supply chain, like we have like our own dashboards for sure. For example, all the data that we analyze, we have our like lead times. So we measure like, okay, from the supplier until it is delivered to the field, how long it takes. And then like all these like predictions, all this data is actually with the objective to deliver the medicines to the field at the right time, with the right quantity. So like our main action is this, okay, how we can lower this. And also like in terms of quality, we have dashboards, and also like we are starting more and more with the forecast accuracy. But I think with data, we need to be more holistic, because now we see, okay, supply chain, medical, sometimes we are really like separated, but I think it's more valuable if we have like holistic view. So, yeah. And then now we are approaching to that by collecting all the data in one place.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I guess as we're heading towards the end, we've got 8 minutes left, determined to bring us in on time, because I know you are amazingly busy, and everybody probably, the audience is amazingly busy as well. One of the key ingredients that strikes me from everything you said collectively, and probably the work we do actually, is the ability to create productive collaborations. And some of that will be, the ingredients to create productive collaborations. Some of it will be saying who we don't want to collaborate with, not in a bad way, but just say that's not aligned to what we want to do and go to our directions. So I wanted to maybe ask 2 questions. If you could give us some insight to how you go about creating productive collaborations from your experience, and also if there are opportunities for people in the audience to reach out and contribute and learn more from your particular organization, how would they go about doing that? And maybe start with yourself first, Irena.
Sure. So, at DataKind, we realized that not, every nail needs a hammer kind of thing, or whatever the expression is. So not everyone needs data science, basically. So we are in a network of organizations that provide support. So for example, we work quite closely with Pro Bono Economics, and they offer a lot of support on the kind of economics and impact assessment for charities. Sometimes that's what organizations need, rather than data collection and data analysis. And so we try to basically offer support to your organization by making these partnerships, because sometimes the requests that they have, the needs are quite entwined. So, can you answer a question on what is the impact of my charity if you don't have the data and you don't have the skills to analyze the kind of impact? So you do need to think of it holistically, and have those partnerships with other organizations that are working with similar goals. And also, the charity is very much a partner. They have the contextual information. So you need a deep collaboration with them to understand the context of the data and the possibilities for it. So that means that the involvement with them needs to be quite long-term. It's not just a 1-hour session. And so you would need to have the kind of involvement that would mean that they can transfer that knowledge to the data scientists to then be able to offer that advice. So I would say that the collaboration needs to be with other partners offering similar but slightly different support, with the charity reps, with the contextual information, and with data scientists who are interested in helping the voluntary sector. So really, it's a massive effort from every side.
Thanks, Irina. And if people want to reach out to DataKind, just go to the website and follow the links on there. Was that the best place to go?
Yes, I forgot to answer that.
No, it's okay.
The best way is to go to the DataKind UK website. Just a wee note that there is also a DataKind Global, which is based in the US, so you might not want to email them. But I popped my email in the chat as well if you want to use that, and you can find me on Twitter as well.
Thanks, Irina. I think Paul's going to post the links to contact all of our panelists today as we go through. Just got 4 minutes left. So I guess, Alex, just briefly from your side, the kind of secret ingredient to successful collaborations from your perspective. And if people want to reach out, can they do it via the website?
Yeah, so I mean, collaboration's in our name, so it's really important that we find a method to get that right. And we've got a impact collaborations process that we set up to bring together the various partners to support our challenge questions. I think we realized quite early on that no one question can be answered by one person or one organization. It really takes a team of various skills and expertise to make that work. So we post challenge questions on our website across the variety of themes that we work in, and we encourage expressions of interests, not just from data scientists, but practitioners, social scientists, people working in policy, etc., who have got an interest in the question and feel like they would want to take part in one of these projects. And we then look to kind of co-create the project with the team. So we're not imposing a structure, we just ask for a set of skills, and then we work with them to create a solution to the project. And I think watching those relationships flourish and watching that kind of multi-sectoral or multidisciplinary teamwork is really rewarding, and it's what makes our projects so successful. Is we're not relying just on data or just on social science. We're really trying to mesh them together. So I would say, yeah, check out the website for when we post new ones of those if you wanted to get involved. We're also on social media, or you can email us at our central inbox as well if you just want to have a chat with the team. We're a chatty bunch.
Great, thank you, Alex. You certainly are a chatty bunch. From being in the Data Lab, really appreciated working with you guys. And final word to Daria. So on collaboration, what's kind of the key ingredient for you guys, and are there ways that people in the audience might be able to reach out to learn more?
Yeah, for us, like it's just more like we are working with like universities when there are like research or like hackathons, and also when we have specific questions or projects, like we work with like consultants, but like a lot of just disadvantages also what I see, because what happens is that, okay, there are solutions are done, and then it's not sustainable anymore. And then we don't take it further because it doesn't work or there's not enough capacity. So my I think the collaboration should be like long-term or sustainable, such that the organizations can continue to work with it. So I think like it is very valuable, like here in this community, also to have a long-term like capacity building. In our organization, for example, we don't have like data science capacity. Like we lack knowledge, but also like it should be like together, like because we have the data, we have the like knowledge on operations, but we lack other information. But in terms of like collaboration, like we don't have like Alice said, we don't have like an open community like place to ask questions. But like if anyone is interested, maybe like if they can mail me or from Twitter, then I can find the right contacts as well. So, but yeah, that's definitely like Alice, like it's very valuable to do this like publicly. So like not very like just like only on project, but publicly.
Great, thank you, Daria. So we're bang on time, 11 o'clock. So let's finish here. Thank you so much, Irina, Daria, and Alex, for joining us and sharing your insight. Truly inspiring work that you are working on, and please share more as you go forward. I'm sure lots of people would like to help you when the opportunities present themselves, and we'll certainly be publicizing through the community and the work that we do as well to help you to get there. So thank you again so much for your time, and thank you to the audience for joining us today, and hope you have a great rest of day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.